This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew. It's episode 297 of the Craft Beer and Brewing Podcast. I'm Jamie Bogner. We're here again in Plzeň in the Czech Republic, not very far from where we recorded last week's episode. Even though we've actually doing this a few days later, we're back in Plzeň for this episode, and joining me is Lenka Straková, head brewmaster for Pivovar Prod. Welcome to the podcast, Lenka.
Thank you for introduction.
Prod is the experimental brewery here in Plzeň, part of Pilsner Urquell, but focused on making beers that are not Pilsner Urquell. Looking at we could call them contemporary styles, but you're really all over the map, making some other old beer styles, making everything from Irish style dry stouts to American style IPAs and APAs and pale ales, which surprisingly get some play over here. We've seen lots of American pale ales on menus at beer bars in Prague and the like. Certainly not as popular as pale Czech lager. Pale Czech lager is still the most important and most popular style out there by a long shot. But today in the brew house, we tasted plenty of beers from kettle sours all the way through, a Pink Boots blend pale ale that you made, and you're making beers across, and even a barrel aged brut IPA, very high ABV, aged in barrels. You're pushing through all of that kind of creative expression. We're going to talk about how you do that here at Prod, and how that process works from the creative side as well as the technical side, and also how you find a way to make a Czech pale lager that also has enough bitterness for Joe and for me, and all of these things. Before we do that, for years, G&D Chillers has chilled the beers you love, partnering with 3,000 plus breweries across the country. They're proud of the cool partnerships they've built over the past 30 years. They know brewing doesn't stop at 5 o'clock, and nor do they. G&D uses quality components, expert craftsmanship, and constant innovation. With 24/7 service and support, your brewery will never stop. Remote monitor your chiller for simple and fast access to all the information you need, providing you with the peace of mind your operation is running smoothly. Reach out for a quote today at gdchillers.com or call to discuss your next project. Also, this episode is sponsored by BSG, exclusive distributors of Rar Malting Company, producers of quality malt since 1847. Navigating the seas of brewing can be a treacherous affair, so let Rar North Star Pils be your guide. With overtones of honey and sweet bread, flavor and aroma notes of hay, and a nutty character, Rar North Star Pils is a base malt you can set your compass by. Great for any beer style, but perfect for a classic lager. Set a course for bsgcraftbrewing.com to learn how. And if you hear Old Orchard mentioned in the brewing community, don't be surprised. The flavored craft juice concentrate blends from Old Orchard have shipped to over 46 states. Their new brewing customers all often mention discovering Old Orchard through word of mouth recommendation of another brewer. To join the core of Old Orchard's brewing community, learn more at oldorchard.com/brewer. I should actually give some background in this. Last week, Joe and I were moving around various parts of the Czech Republic, recording some podcasts as we went. And this was supposed to happen last week. And now we've joined up with the Czech Agriculture Ministry trade mission. And so we're here with a group of brewers from the United States and Canada, and spending the week rolling through the Czech countryside as well as Czech urban areas, exploring everything that Czech beer has to offer, from hops to beer, malt, and everything else. And along the way, we were meeting fantastic and creative brewers. So we were coming back here, and now we finally have a chance to talk about Prod. So Lenka, why don't you talk to me about your background in brewing? How did you get into the world of brewing? And how did you progress through your career of brewing?
It was quite simple. I was just, enjoying studying chemistry and math and searching for something where you can learn more and use those. So yeah, it was just studying food industry. And if you study food industry, it's very close. You have to choose your direction. You can study more meat or baking bread or fermenting something, which sounds good. And as I was born in Pilsen, the beer was very close. So I was just forced to study fermentation, brewing, and malting, and it was great fun. And during the studies, I just realized that I want to brew the beer, not only measure it or watch it or sell it. So.
Sure, we've met plenty of folks that have come, over this week that are working in laboratories doing hop propagation. There's plenty of other things that you could do in that realm here. But certainly if you major in that at a university, then there's a recruiting pool that will pull you right out of there into this industry that needs talented people.
Yeah, but also the university is about more science. So you learn more to be scientific, which is not going directly to production. It's, again, pushing you a little bit more into laboratory or some experimental thing.
Sure.
Which at the end was, combined.
So you decided you wanted to become a brewer then and take the knowledge that you had from university and actually make the beer. What did you do next?
Yeah, I had to learn more practical things. Just when I started to work with this company, I just worked for a laboratory, measuring and everything. But then I wanted to go more into technology, and I had to go to the control rooms and just brew the beer and watch fermentation and control fermentation and maturation. And that was very important to me, that I joined the basics and learned it. And then I was able to continue with technology group and control the overall process of beer production in such a company. And after that, there was a chance to be a brewmaster for new product development, which is very important for me. And that gave me some credit to end up as a head brewmaster in this experimental brewery.
So first you were managing the more experimental side of I know there's a series at Pilsner Urquell where they would make a beer for a month, and so that was first the program that you headed up as brewmaster of that before launching Prod, or before they launched Prod.
Yeah, exactly. We were just introducing different beer styles to Czech consumers in typical Pilsner Urquell pubs. But this program has some limits, like the beer is produced in big brewery at the same time as regular production.
Sure.
So you cannot anyhow make a possible problem to regular production.
So everything has to be triple decocted then, right?
Not really, but you have to be very careful with yeast selection.
Sure.
For example, with the Belgian style beers, we weren't able to just use diacetyl yeast.
Sure.
Because that's big risk for the big brewery.
Right.
So there are some limits. The same with kettle souring. You cannot stop the big brewery for 24 hours.
Right.
So that was maybe a starting point where the idea of experimental brewery and smaller batches started.
And so then Pilsner Urquell decided that they wanted to jump into experimentation in an even more direct and significant way, and began the investment in the building of Prod.
Yeah, actually, it was a combination. The decision was like we wished to have such a brewery as a new product development, Brewmasters. And then Asahi came in as owner of our company. And they just agreed that it's not that bad idea, but only if the brewer is self-efficient. So we created a new brand, and we have to sell everything. We are not making tests for the big brands, just brewing our beer and selling it, and it's in our hands how we manage it.
And it really is. And, obviously Pilsner Urquell has lots and it is an economic force in the Czech Republic. Many, 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 many pubs. I mean, even sold in other craft breweries in Czech Republic. It's so large and consumers expect it so much. But you have to, you are also still trying to sell your own beer. You can't necessarily piggyback and take advantage of that in order to get the beer out here to the same kind of degree. It's not like everyone is just selling Prod beer because it's a Pilsner Urquell brand.
Exactly. We are owned by this big company, but we are not using their selling channel. So we will see if we are able to do it and survive. It will be great. If not, the company can open some channels for us, but it's a fail.
Well, it's a beautiful facility here. This is the old power plant, right, for Pilsen, one of the built in the early 1900s, and it's a building that you all have then renovated and been building out for the brewery. And it's a gorgeous brew house and gorgeous fermentation cellar, and it's a spectacular thing to see. I want to talk about how you then approach within this context how you approach designing beers, how you think about the beers, because obviously Czech Republic has a strong brewing history. There's lots of expectations among beer drinkers for what beer should taste like and what they want out of beer. They want that drinkability. They want to be able to drink a number of beers, and and so you are trying to navigate within this Czech beer world and also pull in creative ideas from brewing in other places. I want to talk about that. But first, AccuBrew now monitors specific gravity to ensure consistent results and detect problems before they ruin a batch. The AccuBrew system is designed to give you unprecedented insight into the fermentation process, monitor gravity, fermentation activity, clarity, and temperature, schedule reminders, and receive alerts anywhere, anytime. AccuBrew's CIP-ready device is designed to stay out of your way. They know your time and space is precious, and they take up as little of both as possible. No more samples, no cleaning, and no calibration. Set it and forget it. To learn more about AccuBrew, head over to accubrew.io. Also, ProBrew has been a dedicated and trusted partner to breweries, especially when they make the leap to canning their product. That's why they only sell rotary can fillers, which significantly reduce product waste and produce higher quality product than an inline can filler. Need proof? Visit ProBrew at booth 433, as well as at their party at Yazoo Brewing at this year's Craft Brewers Conference in Nashville. To RSVP to their event or schedule time with them at the show, visit them at probrew.com/CBC or email contact us at probrew.com. ProBrew, brew your beer. So you start this experimental brewery. You are appointed brewmaster for this brewery, and it's your job to come up with beers. Where do you start? This is my favorite question to ask on the podcast. How do you start? How do you think of what beers are going to resonate with people, connect with people?
Great question. Yeah, first, if I start, let's say, with creating our portfolio, we were thinking about different occasion where you want to drink beer, and again, if we have this beer all year, would it be 5 pale beers or what? So we were sure we need a lager. We are in Czech Republic, so that's without doubt. Then we need a draft beer, something a little bit lighter, but we didn't want to have the beer bottom fermented. So I was thinking about something top fermented, but like, I don't want to say boring, but simple beer, refreshing, and English pale ale was something I like. It can be enough bitter, still refreshing. We had to prepare it with slightly higher carbonation, because that's how we are used to drink beer. And then
that is an interesting point. We have, while here, experienced that beer is carbonated, but it is softer in that sense than some American styles in terms of its carbonation.
We in Czech Republic with the lager dominating the market, the people are just used to drink carbonated beer, and it's part of the refreshing effect. And where we excluded those bubbles, it was too big surprise.
Okay.
Just not part of.
You couldn't serve it as flat as the English normally serve it.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
And on the other hand, it wasn't cask beer where you can explain it because of the serving. So we already saw it in UK that they pack something to cask and something to keg,
right,
and have different levels of carbonation. So we had to do it the same way. And then other beers are just slightly darker, semi-dark, rye IPA, dark stout. And the non-alcohol is pale, but it's special with no presence of alcohol.
Sure.
Or low level of alcohol.
Sure. In terms of the beer that you sell the most of, I'm going to assume that even though you make these other creative styles, that your pale lager is still the number one seller for the beer, for the brewery.
Yes, it is.
By how much? Half of it? Half or more?
Not really. It makes something between 25-30% of our volume. But that's the thing why we don't have the light beer, the draft beer, bottom fermented. Because if this beer is bottom fermented, then those two makes more than 50%.
Sure. So as you're thinking about how to make a Czech pale lager that is not the same Czech pale lager, same exact as Pilsner Urquell, or the same pale Czech lager as other brewers in other parts of the country here, how did you start thinking about designing the right kind of pale Czech lager for Prague? Also knowing that a lot of the ingredients that you use, you pull in ingredients from all over the place. There's lots of bags of Weirmann and Soufflé and others down in the mill room right now. But there's also a nice big tower of Pilsner malt that comes from the malt house right here at Pilsner Urquell. As you started thinking about making Czech lager, how did you start thinking about designing a pale Czech lager that was going to represent this brewery?
Honestly, I started with the thinking just how to be as close as possible and not copy it directly.
Sure.
Because I know the recipe, but...
Sure, you brewed the recipe before.
But I don't want to use it, and maybe we are not allowed to use it.
Sure. And you also have a different brew house here. You have a stainless steel brew house. You know, yours is a steam system. You know, obviously theirs is a direct fire. It's copper. You know, there are different mechanics to this whole system.
Yeah.
So how did you then?
There's a lot of differences, but what I wanted to keep was use of same raw materials. We have the same malt. I can use the same hops, I have different yeast, so different fermentation ratio, but then we end up just with slightly different ABV. So
what yeast did you decide to use?
It's a liquid yeast coming from the other big brewery in this area, Gambrinus.
And that's also right here, and that's a 3470 Weinstefan strain. Yeah. What do you find about that yeast? And you're not the first Czech brewer that has told us that they're using 3470, Weinstefan frame.
Yeah, those yeasts are very stable, and you don't need to care about diacetyl that much because they are producing and reducing it at the same way. So they work fine if you don't stress them.
Sure.
It's fine.
So you are focused on reducing diacetyl in your pale Czech lager. We've tasted a whole range over the last 8 days that we've been here of expressions of that from less to more and some very significant. How do you feel about that?
Actually, I'm not that focused on reducing. I'm not able to maintain a certain level because really slight amount of diacetyl in Czech lager can work for you, make a bitterness softer and the beer just great way balanced. But it's hard to really maintain this level. And if you pack the beer with this level of diacetyl, it will definitely age during storage or somewhere on shelf. So to me, it's safer to just have no diacetyl and balance the beer without diacetyl. And then it's only a thing of cleaning, because the second problem can be that if the beer is contaminated and not micro clean, the diacetyl can occur like secondary.
Oh, you can.
That's a bad one.
Of course, generate more diacetyl through that process. As we've talked about this at length in our friendly conversations with Evan Rail, an American beer writer, while we were here, and he's mentioned to us a few times that there's a threshold of about 200 parts per million, kind of the top end, and where up to that point diacetyl is accepted, and then beyond that it's not. It's interesting to hear that, and I think that again, as I taste your pale Czech lager, it has a more intense hop note, a more bigger hop presence that also helps draw the attention away from that kind of diacetyl component there. Talk to me about how you balance that stronger hoppiness. And I'm just asking you this because this is Joe's favorite topic to talk about, how hoppy Pilsner beer and lager beer should be. His favorite is Pilsner in the 50 plus IBU range.
Okay, this is quite funny question in the meaning that during preparation of our lager or my lager in this brewery, I was just trying 2 different lager yeast. And one strain tasted very well directly after fermentation. The young beer was very hoppy and very nice. The second strain was too yeasty and a little bit heavy. But after 25-30 days of maturation, it just switched. And the nice, fresh, hoppy one was just gone. And the yeasty, tired one, just, the yeasty taste and aroma was reduced because there was some sedimentation and maturation, and the hoppy aroma occurred. Just, this is what I want. Just a slightly longer maturation and then stable hoppy aroma. And that was quite surprise with our yeast 3470.
3470. Yeah, that's interesting. And thinking again about how that lagering process becomes part of the recipe design, and you have to design for it to taste good on the far end of that, is an important point. Let's talk about the hops, that you use. Obviously, we're here not an hour away from Žatec and the home of Saaz hops. Pilsner Urquell uses lots and lots of Saaz hops. Do you select hops in a slightly different way, or are you all using from the same pool of hops?
If I'm using a Saaz, the original, I'm using the same batches as Pilsner Urquell, because we are able to just purchase it together.
Sure.
But we have a quite nice breeding program in Czech Republic. A lot of new varieties based on Saaz family. And that's also something which is really worth to try. Actually, you are maybe tasting one of examples of the new Saaz hops pronounced in the beer. And that's something where we are present during selections and judging the new breedings and selecting what's like promising. And then we are brewing with these hops. This is Saaz Comfort. It's one breeded in the Saaz, direct Saaz family. But we have also more slightly different hops, like going to fruity characters and like not only fine aroma hops, but only aroma hops suitable for modern beers.
Sure. In your pale Czech lager, you use Saaz, just Saaz. Yeah, you have to.
Of course.
This beer with comfort. Yesterday we tasted several beers with Saaz Shine and Saaz Comfort used in different kinds of ways. They were definitely a little bit sweeter than this, and this has a nice dryness that I think benefits the hop in a way. When you think about the difference in some of these newer Saaz varieties, from a brewer mind, a creative mind, how do you think of these?
Yeah, my role is to try it, because if you smell the hops, you don't know how it will be pronounced in the beer. So you have to brew it and then see how it works. And I really like those beers which are single hopped.
Sure.
Where you can feel not only the aroma but also character of bitterness, and it's a complex thing.
And I love that you care about a little extra dryness in these that also allows some of that kind of balance, to come forward. Are there any other Saaz varieties that have been exciting for you to use, that you would like to use more of, or that you think have a lot of promise?
Yeah, I want definitely to brew something with Saaz Shine, which is also very nice. But now we are focused on other varieties which are named by planets, like Saturn, Juno, Ceres, and other, which are really more fruity. And it's interesting how it works in a lager beer. And specifically if you use it only in a brew house, not for dry hopping, then you can see what can survive in the beer. And yeah, I like it.
What do you see with those as you move them through a brew house? Everyone has been talking about survivables for the last year. And are there some of those hops that you find lend themselves well to, when we talk about fruity, we're talking about a Czech idea of fruity and not an American hop idea of fruity. It's much more subtle. We're talking about nuance and not citra, not in your face character. Or are there some of those, and how do you find ways to use those in a way that benefits that kind of character?
In this way, it's really about experimental brew with a single hop and then see what happens, because we don't have or we don't use a chance to brew some smaller batch and then see what happens. So it's kind of risk, but that's the interesting part. And then you judge the aroma, the bitterness character in the final beer. And that's, something you like.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about let's pivot now. And we've talked about Czech lager a lot on this trip. I want to pivot and talk about some of the ways that you approach some of these other beer styles, but also from a Czech perspective. And I'm also curious to talk about your brew house a little bit, because it is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It is an absolutely stunning brew house. Before we do that, from the rotatable pickup tube on Rogue Brewing's pilot brew house to the integrated hop backs on Sierra Nevada's twin prototyping brew houses, SS Brewtech has taken technology they invented, working with world-renowned industry veterans, and made them available to every craft brewer. To learn more about SS Brewtech's innovation list, head on over to ssbrewtech.com. Also, 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, and reusable PackTech handles are the sustainable solution to handle your craft beer. PackTech has been a leading producer of secondary packaging for the craft beer industry for over 30 years, and their handles are found across the globe. By fully embracing the principles of circular economy, PackTech helps customers meet their own ambitious, sustainable goals. 100% recycled, 100% recyclable, and reusable, PackTech is the sustainable packaging solution for your craft beer. Order your free samples today. Call 541-461-5000. That's 541-461-5000. And Berkeley Yeast, the creators of Tropics Yeast, which produces massive notes of guava and passion fruit, now bring you Thiol Boost. Berkeley Yeast's Thiol Boost is pure liquid thiol precursors that take Tropics to the next level. Add it to the fermenter when you pitch the yeast and prepare yourself for tropical fruit nirvana. The concentration of precursors is the same in every batch of Thiol Boost, so you can predictably tune the level of tropical flavor by adjusting the dosage. Mention this podcast to get 15% off your next order. Berkeley Yeast, ordinary yeast made extraordinary. Let's talk about your approach to non-Czech beer styles, and the way that you start thinking about those and making those for primarily a Czech drinking audience, because your beer is sold here. With something like an English pale ale, which for me, my approach to English pale ale, yours is maybe a little more bitter, a little more like a Czech lager brewer making an English pale ale in the best possible way. And I say that because we've also had plenty of American pale ales from Czech brewers, and it's actually fun to watch how these brewing traditions get filtered through, and how your tradition, your Czech brewing tradition, influences the way that you make some of these other styles. How, as you approach English pale ale, do you combine the expectation of top fermented English pale ale with your own Czech brewing traditions?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. And in our case, we're just playing a little bit with water, because we have very soft water, much different than a hard English water. So we went just halfway to add some minerals, but to be a little bit harder
Sure.
with our water, but not that hard as Barton, for example.
Sure.
And the pale ale we wanted to create was aimed to be best bitter, not that high in alcohol, but quite bitter to support a little bit drinkability, because this is something we are trying to achieve in every beer we create, just to be a little bit more drinkable. Yeah. And it's interesting that sometimes you can really achieve it, even if the beer style is not drinkable.
Really? What do you mean by that?
Especially for high ABV beers.
Yeah.
If you don't feel the alcohol and the beer is well balanced with body and bitterness, it for different style can be different, but this balance is important. And if you don't feel the alcohol, it can just be judged as a drinkable.
Sure. When you're building English pale ale, from a malt standpoint, is that all pale ale malts, or do you blend Pilsner base malt with that? And how do you build malt for it?
Yeah, we went to a combination of pale ale malt and our Pilsner malt. Mm-hmm. It's a 50-50 combination.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the malts by parameters are very, very close.
Huh.
It's just a pale malt prepared from different barley variety. So the pale ale malt has slightly higher proteins, but the sugars and other parameters are really very, very similar.
Now, as we discussed with Václav Burka, the malt that Pilsner Urquell makes it tends to be less modified, in order to prepare it for that triple decoction process. How does that impact the way that you brew, say, some of these ale styles when you are using some of that Pilsner malt?
Yeah, it gave us slightly higher residual sugars.
Yeah.
So the beer can be lighter in terms if the English pale ale is a 10 plateau beer, we are somewhere around 4% of alcohol maximum. So it works for us to keep the beer a little bit lighter, which can be more drinkable again.
But I guess it also then forces you to use yeasts that will attenuate also to dryness, so that you don't leave them too sweet. Actually,
for this beer, for the pale ale, we use the ESB yeast supplied from Lallemand.
Okay.
So it's a strain which is designed for this style of beer, and it has not high attenuation. So
yeah. What's your favorite beer of the last year that you've brewed? And talk to me about the process of envisioning that beer and then going through and brewing it.
Okay, this is really the worst question ever.
Sure. I appreciate your honesty.
All babies
sure
are the same. But
I have two kids.
Yeah. Which one do you like more?
I'll tell you off the microphone.
And that's,
I love them both.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Both, but there's one, they won't listen to this, so that's okay for me to say that.
Okay. I like bitter beers.
Yeah.
And I was born in Pilsen, so lager is something I can always just drink, and something which is refreshing you.
Sure.
But creating other styles, there are many things which are involved, raw materials, unusual raw materials like spices or fruits, and I really don't want to name one of them. Currently, maybe Pink Boots APA is something which is giving me,
It's hitting you in the right way. It's
Yeah.
That's the beer that's exciting you right now.
Yeah, sure. It's close to release and it's extremely fresh.
Sure.
So
We drank it off of the tanks earlier today. Tell me about brewing that beer. How did you design a recipe? In America, most people would brew that as an IPA, a little bit stronger. They would brew it with all, pale ale malt, 2-row. And how did you then decide to tackle brewing a beer that you did as an American pale ale at a lower ABV, with your mix of whatever malt that is? Talk to me about how you prepared your own Pink Boots blend beer.
we just wanted to be slightly more sessionable. So that's why we went for lower ABV beer. And of course, all the Pink Boots blends are very aromatic and designed for IPAs. So why to not make it a little bit different way? And also I know about breweries brewing here in Czech, and we don't want to have 9 different IPAs with the same hops. So that's also a thing which is included in the planning, just to have more of beer as possible, different recipes, different styles with the same hops.
So you talked to other Czech brewers who
Yes.
were also brewing this and
Yes.
then decided not to brew the same beer as them.
And that's the fun,
Sure.
because
Okay.
then we will have a tasting event where we will taste all beers with the same hops, different styles, and make some fun.
As you work with a blend of generally hops like this, which have a very strong flavor, a pretty intense flavor, how do you that kind of beer, as we've noticed through this time in Czech, like that kind of flavor intensity, may not be as attractive to a lot of Czech drinkers. And I'd say that's on average. There are still those fans that love craft style beer from other places, and I know that and want that. But your average consumer probably wants something that feels a little more smoother and controlled, because that's the flavor. How do you think about taking those ingredients and fitting them into a beer that becomes more smooth and controlled like that?
Yes, specifically for this beer, we are using some amount of Bavarian malt to create the body, which will be a little bit more malty, because this can balance the high aroma coming from this blend.
When you say Bavarian malt, what do you mean?
It's a Munich style.
Munich style malt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it, because then you have some oat flakes, something which is just naturally present in this recipe. But this malt is just a thing where you want to support the body and the malt flavor or malt profile of the beer to be not flat or simple.
Right.
This part, because we were expecting really high aroma and straightforward fruity notes.
Yeah, and you also used oats in this?
Yeah.
How much in a percentage of Munich malt and oats, and you don't have to be exact?
I'm not sure, but it can be somewhere between 10 to 15% of flake oats and up to 20% of Bavarian malt.
Yeah. As you think about building that smoothness to the hop character, are there any techniques that you use in the brew house to ensure that they convey in that kind of smooth way?
Not really.
Sure.
In this case, it's simple infusion. So
Yeah, it's just simple infusion. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that in terms of dry hopping? Is there a way that you dry hop then this beer?
I don't think it's something exceptional. It's just small portion at the beginning of fermentation, just to get some substances already
at the beginning during active fermentation.
Introducing to the beer during the fermentation. And
why then rather than at post fermentation?
That's a first portion, and then second before end of fermentation. And yeah, the chemistry behind is just complicated. So we believe this works.
You are here for biotransformation. And what kind of yeast do you ferment with on this?
This year we did it with Verdant yeast.
Verdant yeast? Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, it's usually used for New England IPAs.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that it will create your New England IPA.
So you can get it to be a clear beer, not a hazy beer.
Yeah.
But it still supports that biotransformation and
yes.
that juicy character. Cool. We had a beer earlier as we tasted it that was, as you described it, a 13% alcohol barrel aged brut IPA that was aged in wine barrels. Talk to me about brewing this beer, because if someone had told me brut IPA, it would not probably be a beer that I would just go and order. And if you told me a 13% brut IPA aged in wine barrels, that sounds crazy to me. Talk to me about the process behind brewing such a beer.
Yeah, you are not first who told me the same. But we wanted to create something strong, which is not able to re-ferment or ferment more during the barrel aging. So that's why we used or went for brut IPA. And we hopped and dry hopped this beer with German hops because of the flavor. Those hop was more floral and very similar to the wine, which was originally stored in the wooden barrel. So we just wanted to be as close as possible with this aroma profile. And then we just went for this risk.
What wine was the?
It was Pinot Blanc.
Pinot Blanc. And what German hops did you use?
Magnum and some new breedings, which are blended to unique product. Yeah, then we just filled the barrel and we're waiting for 1 year to see what happens, because we are not that experienced to be sure that
sure
the product will be good or bad.
And you used an enzyme in the fermentation process in order to achieve the kind of dryness. You even fermented this down to to fully dry.
Yeah, we used this enzyme in a brew house to really broke the starch to sugars, and then a small portion to fermentation to be sure that we will reach 0. And that happened. So I'm sure that the slight increase of alcohol during barrel aging was just a case of evaporation. Sure.
Despite the fact that beer hit full dryness and 0 Plato, it still was a very drinkable beer and had a nice mouthfeel to it. It didn't feel rough or too sharp. How do you get that balance and that drinkability in a beer with that much alcohol that also is picking up those notes from the barrel?
I don't want to say by accident.
You are very honest. I appreciate that.
But, the high alcohol can also work as a body. It gives some sweetness. And if it's not coming from some, let's say, unwanted process, or if it's not higher alcohol, if it's only your ethanol, it really works. And it gives you some sweet note. Yeah, that's interesting. And as I told you before, you're just playing with the barrels and learning how it works. So
Sure. What are you most excited to learn about next? What's the next beer that you want to brew that has you the most excited right now?
Oh, tough one. I don't know. Time to time, it just happens that we talk with my colleagues and talking about what we like to cook or some new ingredients we use. This was similar when we created our pepper saison or the line of beers with peppercorn addition. We're just talking about kitchen, and I have great pepper. So I don't know. It's not part of the plan. You plan. I'm going to do something crazy.
It just
we will.
It just hits you, and when it hits you,
Yes.
know. Sure. Are there other beers that you've tried over the last year that have just turned on a light bulb in your brain and said, "Oh, I want to try brewing that"?
A lot of them.
Sure.
But maybe Cascara beers are interesting, and it's interesting material.
These Cascara sour, fruity beers.
Yeah, a little bit sour, but also fruity and maybe nutty. So that's something we are definitely going to try. But I don't know how the beer will be. And I don't know.
Sure. When you are finished with your work day and you go grab a beer, what beers do you drink the most of? Usually
lager.
Well, fantastic.
Sorry, experimental lager.
You're also a brewer, and so you're welcome to that. Well, Lenka, I appreciate you joining me here for the podcast. Let's bring this to a close. G&D Chillers has set the standard on quality, service, and reliability with 24/7 service and support. Raw North Star Pils is a base malt you can set your compass by. Flavored craft juice concentrate blends from Old Orchard have shipped to over 46 states. The AccuBrew system gives you unprecedented insight into the fermentation process. ProBrew's rotary can fillers reduce waste and produce higher quality packaged beer. SS BrewTech has made the top tech available to every craft brewer. PackTech handles are the sustainable solution to handle your craft beer. And Berkeley Yeast Thiol Boost is pure liquid thiol precursors that take tropics to the next level. Of course, if you've enjoyed this podcast, go to beerandbrewing.com, click on the subscribe button. I think Joe is going to talk to you about a recipe here that we might be able to share with some of our subscribers down the road. So, you may be able to, the next few weeks or the next couple months, be able to brew your own Prode recipe if you're a subscriber to Craft Beer and Brewing. If people want to learn more about your brewery, where do they find Prode?
Actually, we have the beer only in Czech Republic. So it's our website and some Czech shops. So come to Czech Republic and try it.
Sounds like a great plan. I am here for it. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. It's been great talking to you about brewing. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
Or
cheers.
Zdraví. This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.